Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we are jumping straight into a really grounded, fascinating interpretation of ancient wisdom. We're unpacking an essay and translation by Xu Feng called Cultivation and Practice Should Align with Nature, which draws heavily from Lao Tzu and the Tao Te Ching. Now, if you've ever felt completely overwhelmed by complex spiritual practices, or kind of felt like true enlightenment is just way too demanding or mysterious to ever actually reach, well, you're in luck, because this text offers a seriously liberating perspective. The whole core message is about dismantling those complicated structures we've built up around spirituality and simply returning to the absolute basics of natural living. Okay, let's dive into this. Lao Tzu famously stated, "The great way is simple, yet people prefer shortcuts." This single sentence is incredibly powerful. It basically acts as the thesis for dismantling how we modern humans tend to completely overcomplicate our spiritual and really our daily lives. We just naturally operate under this assumption that to achieve something profound, it absolutely must be grueling, highly complex, or super mystical. But this text argues the exact opposite. The truth, it says, is sitting right in front of us. It's beautifully simple, yet we constantly bypass it, always looking for some secret back door.
So, Section 1, the great way is simple. The key takeaway here is all about harmonizing with nature.
Let's move to Ranzi and see how this builds into a logical, cosmic hierarchy. The author explains that the natural order and the highest laws of the universe operate completely unobtrusively. They just unfold effortlessly without any need for forced endeavor whatsoever. So, step 1, humans follow the Earth. Step 2, the Earth follows the solar system. Step 3, the solar system adheres to the Tao. And finally, step 4, the Tao manifests in nature. See how that works? It's this beautiful, descending cascade of natural law. We aren't separate from the cosmos at all. We're a foundational part of a perfectly aligned, effortlessly running system. True wisdom isn't about breaking out of the system. It's about simply aligning ourselves with this grand natural design.
So, how exactly does the text define this crucial concept? Well, nature is very specifically defined as all things and phenomena that grow, decay, operate, and evolve in accordance with natural laws. And this entire process is seen as embodying the will of what the text refers to as the greatest creator. Now, follow the logic here. If the Tao manifests in nature, it means anything that contradicts these standard natural processes of growth, aging, and daily functioning is inherently unnatural. Literally any forced endeavor that fights against this natural rhythm is strictly contrary to the way. Moving right along to Section 2, perfection of human limits, and finding protections in our very own design. This is where ancient philosophy gets incredibly tangible. Get ready for a major paradigm shift that I really want you to absorb. Human physical limits are protections, not restrictions. So often in spiritual circles, we view our human bodies as frail. We view our earthly physical boundaries as these cages that we somehow need to break out of to reach higher spiritual heights. But Xu Feng's interpretation flips this entirely upside down. What we often perceive as frustrating physical weaknesses or earthly boundaries are actually perfectly designed safeguards, intended strictly to ensure our survival and well-being. And this brilliantly illustrates the point. We can see it clearly right in our own biology. Think about the standard range of human hearing, right? 20 to 20,000 hertz. According to the text, we only hear within this highly specific range because it's a vital protection. If we had the ability to hear sounds beyond 20,000 hertz, or way below 20 hertz, the constant booming noise of the universe would actually physically harm us. So this biological limitation isn't a flaw at all. It's entirely purposeful and perfectly calibrated for our safety. We see the exact same principle applied to our vision, which sits between 400 and 700 nanometers. Our human eyes can only perceive this exact, narrow range of light. The source points out that if we were to perceive light beyond this spectrum, human survival would become incredibly difficult. We'd simply be completely overwhelmed by our environment. It's a perfect bridge between ancient philosophy and tangible biology. Our human design is intentional, it's highly coordinated with the Earth, and it's entirely protective. Which brings us to Section 3. Avoiding spiritual shortcuts. Let's talk about why there are absolutely no spiritual workarounds. This hits right at the central conflict addressed in the text. I mean, if our natural design is really so perfect and our biological limits are actually beautiful protections, why do people desperately seek out extreme workarounds to try and escape their human nature? The text highlights all these unnecessary shortcuts, things like regulating Ren and Du channels, trying to open the mysterious gate, refining elixirs, chasing out-of-body experiences, retreating into total isolation, or trying to connect with higher spiritual beings.
The author points out that people overcomplicate spirituality with these intense, unnatural practices because of excessive desire, what the Buddha called greed, anger, and ignorance. Basically, it all stems from an unwillingness to just simply be human. People want to be immortals or Buddhas instead of just embracing the beautiful life they were naturally given.
So the crucial point is understanding what the text calls the deviant path. The deviant path is strictly defined as rejecting what is naturally provided while desperately pursuing what is not meant for humanity. Attempting to become a god, a demon, or an immortal directly violates our human design. The author warns that to go against our natural human instincts and bodily needs is actually to abandon the kingdom of the greatest creator, simply because you're rejecting the very nature you were specifically designed to embody.
Section 4, Cultivating Through Everyday Life. Let's look at establishing a real spiritual daily routine. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the stark contrast it shows. If we shouldn't be seeking these magical shortcuts, what exactly should we be doing? Look at the incredible difference between the extreme, jarring sacrifices of popular spirituality and natural human living. On the natural side, it involves simply eating when you're hungry, sleeping at night, expressing affection naturally, and enjoying a joyful communal life. Now compare that to the deviant path. This involves unnatural practices like fasting and breatharianism, staying awake at midnight to practice techniques when your body desperately needs rest, suppressing natural love and affection, or abandoning society to retreat into deep mountain solitude. The text even mentions how people will avoid perfectly natural foods like onions or garlic just to achieve some imagined pure body. All of these forced restrictions go entirely against the way. It all culminates in this incredibly empowering, summarizing thought from the text. To become celestial beings or Buddhas, there is no need for extraordinary methods. Perfecting one's human nature suffices. What a liberating message! The author is essentially saying that being a good, simple human, living out your natural daily functions with honesty, is the absolute ultimate spiritual achievement. You don't need these lofty ambitions. You don't need miraculous shortcuts or extreme diets. Simply freeing yourself from unnatural attachments and following the natural order is what actually leads to sanctity. Which brings us to the end of our explainer. I want to leave you with a direct question inspired by this fascinating philosophy. If the greatest spiritual achievement is simply being perfectly human, what part of your human nature will you perfect today? Will it be working diligently, resting peacefully when the sun finally goes down, expressing love and affection naturally to the people around you? Just remember, you don't need some extreme shortcut. You just need to be you, naturally and perfectly. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and I will see you next time as we continue to learn and grow together.